At the conclusion of the hearing for the first case, the court will take a recess and remind all those who are scheduled for the first appearance calendar to log back in 15 minutes after the court has taken a recess. As a general note, no electronic usage is allowed unless pre-approved. Any disruptions will be removed. To the jail, are we ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Calling case 251-403-576, State of Utah versus Tyler James Robinson. Could you state your name?
Tyler James Robinson.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Robinson. I'm Judge Graff. Mr. Skordas.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. You're probably already aware of my presence or why I'm here, but if not, I am not entering an appearance. I'm not counsel on this case. I'm working with the county to get counsel assigned, but we need you to allow for the appointment of counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Skordas. I want to go through the qualifications
Absolutely.
For indigency, but that is my intent, Mr. Skordas.
Very well.
And I thank you for being here. So, Mr. Robinson, you have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, the court can appoint an attorney to represent you. I have reviewed your declaration of financial status and find that you are indigent. I'm provisionally appointing a Rule 8 qualified attorney to represent you on your case, Mr. Robinson. Along with their filing of their appearance of counsel, the assigned attorneys must file declarations with the court that outline their qualifications under Rule 8 and Rule 8C, under Rule 8B and Rule 8C for a counsel appointment in a case where death may be a sentencing option. I'm ordering that those declarations be filed prior to the next hearing date, which is set for September 29th at 10 a.m. Mr. Robinson, I also wish to inform you of your right against self-incrimination. Anything that you say in court today could be used against you, and we want to protect your constitutional rights. Mr. Robinson, at this time, you will remain in custody without bail. Mr. Skordas, is there any other points that you wish to address?
No, thank you very much, Your Honor.
Turning to the state.
Yes, Your Honor, Chad Grunander for the state. I'm also joined, and they're listed as attendees, Ryan McBride, Lauren Hunt, David Sturgill, and Chris Ballard. We are the trial team on this case. I do have a few points I'd like to bring up with Your Honor. We have filed a pretrial protective order on behalf of Erica Kirk. We would ask the court to review that. It should be in your queue, Your Honor, and sign that.
Thank you. I have reviewed the pretrial protective order and will be issuing this pretrial protective order in favor of Erica Kirk. Is there any other business that we need to address today, counsel?
Just for the court's information, we did file just recently, within the last few minutes, a notice of intent to seek the death penalty that was filed by Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray. So that should be in the court's file. Lastly, I would just indicate to the court and to, at this point, Mr. Robinson, that we are prepared to collect all of the discovery in this matter and get that turned over to the defense as soon as possible. Rule 16 requires us to provide what we have relied on in charging the information and bringing these charges within 5 days once it's requested. So that'll be prepared to disseminate to the defense as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Grunander. Mr. Robinson, what I also want to do is you have the right to have the charges read that you stand charged of, and I wish to read those to you at this time. Thank you. Mr. Robinson, for count 1, aggravated murder, a capital felony in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-5-202, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Charlie Kirk under the following circumstances. The defendant knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant. Notice conviction of this offense may carry the death penalty or pursuant to Utah Code 76.3-207.7, a mandatory term of imprisonment for life without parole or an indeterminate term of not less than 25 years, that may be for life. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2. Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. Notice if the trier of fact finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the victim targeting enhancement applies, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor. Violent offense committed in the presence of a child aggravating factor, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider as an aggravating factor in their deliberations that the defendant committed a violent criminal offense in the presence of a child. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, a first-degree felony, in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-11-210 sub 2 and 3C, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson discharged a firearm in the direction of Charlie Kirk, knowing or having reason to believe that Charlie Kirk may be endangered by the discharge of the firearm and that the act caused serious bodily injury to Charlie Kirk. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2. Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. Notice if the trier of fact finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the victim targeting enhancement applies, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor. Violent offense committed in the presence of a child aggravating factor. The sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider an aggravating factor in their deliberations that the defendant committed a violent offense in the presence of a child. Count 3, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-8-306 sub 2, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant Tyler James Robinson, with intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or pursuant to any person regarding conduct that constitutes a criminal offense, conceal or remove the firearm used to shoot Charlie Kirk, and the conduct that constitutes an offense would be a capital felony or a first-degree felony. Count 4, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony in violation of Utah Code 76-8-306 sub 2, in that on or about September 11th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, with an intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or punishment of any person regarding conduct that constitutes a criminal offense, destroyed, concealed, or removed the clothing he wore during the shooting, and the conduct that constitutes an offense would be a capital felony or first-degree felony. Count 5, tampering with a witness, a third-degree felony in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-8-508, in that on or about September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, believed that an official proceeding or investigation was pending or about to be instituted or intended to prevent an official proceeding or investigation, and attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony, information, a document, or an item to wit, directing his roommate to delete incriminating text messages. Count 6, tampering with a witness, a third-degree felony in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-8-508, in that on or about September 11th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, believed that an official proceeding or investigation was pending or about to be instituted, or intended to prevent an official proceeding or investigation and attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony or information, to wit, directing his roommate to stay silent if the police questioned the roommate. Count 7, violent offense committed in the presence of a child, a Class A misdemeanor in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-3-203.10 sub 2 and 76-3-203.14 sub 3a little double I, in that on or about September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, committed criminal homicide in the physical presence of a child younger than 14 years of age, with knowledge that a child was present and that may have been seen or heard the commission of the criminal homicide. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2, Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. That concludes reading the information. Mr. Robinson, this case is set for September 29th at 10 a.m. It will be a waiver hearing, and I will be the judge assigned to this case. Mr. Robinson, I invite you to join us at that time. Is there anything further, counsel?
No, Your Honor, we'll have counsel appointed by then. Thank you.
Mr. Gurander, anything further?
One item, just for clarification, Your Honor, the hearing on the 29th, is that in person or WebEx?
Thank you. That is a great question. It will be via WebEx.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
All right. I want to thank all parties for being here, and this concludes this hearing at this time. Court is in recess.
All right.
You have been watching that court hearing for the man suspected of shooting and killing Charlie Kirk last week on a campus in Utah. You saw the suspected assassin, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson there, not speaking, wearing what appeared to be some kind of green vest, as the judge read out the 7 charges against him, including, of course, aggravated murder. The state making clear that they are seeking the death penalty and putting in place, the judge did, a protective order, apparently at the request of the state, for Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's widow. I want to bring in Danny Savalos. I want to bring back Steve Patterson, who's live for us in Utah. Danny, as we noted, that was a virtual and fairly quick court proceeding here. September 29th, that'll be the next one for Tyler Robinson.
These hearings are quick anyway, and that's before court started doing virtual appearances where the suspect doesn't even need to leave the jail. In fact, it might have even been shorter. Normally, a defendant will waive the reading of the formal charges or the indictment. But I suspect that in a case of this much national interest, the judge just wanted to make extra certain there was no doubt that the defendant was informed of the charges against him. That avoids him having to even speak. It makes it cleaner, although it adds just a few minutes onto what could otherwise be a matter of seconds in some cases.
And is the 29th when we would expect to hear Robinson enter a plea? He, it sounds like, does not have an attorney yet, although one will be appointed.
Yes, in all likelihood, and this is no surprise for a crime of this magnitude. Given what little we know about him, it's unlikely he would have the funds to pay for his own private counsel. So no surprise. The only real question is whether or not he'll get the public defender, which I suspect he will not. He's more likely to get appointed private counsel. And here's the key. They have to be death penalty qualified. That requires a ton of extra training. And people who handle those capital cases are almost always court appointed. It's very rare that a capital murder case involves a defendant who's well-heeled enough to pay for private counsel.
Noting here, too, some of the paperwork is just into us on that protective order that the court finds the defendant represents a credible threat to the physical safety of that person here being Erica Kirk. Danny, stand by for a second. I want to go back to Steve Patterson here. And Steve, it has been a remarkable series of developments over the course of the last several hours as state officials, the Utah attorney there earlier in the day described, and the charging documents, some of these probable cause documents showed step by step, almost minute by minute in some instances, how they closed in on this 22-year-old as their suspect.
They did. And in doing so, we got the TikTok, we got the charges. Also, these, the exchange of text messages between Robinson and his roommate. These are details that we simply didn't have before. One thing that sort of gels with what we saw in the text messages, this exchange, again, before and after between Robinson and roommate, who believed to be romantically linked, is how cognizant and lucid Robinson appears. And I would say that for looking at this video, although unblinking, so unblinking and eerily at times that it almost appears like the video is frozen. Just want to comment a little bit more on the physical appearance of Robinson, appearing over WebEx on video. Appears to be wearing what is described to me as a safety smock. We know he's on a special hold, right? They're going to hold him there in a separate unit before they evaluate his mental health, before they put him in maybe a more different location, a more general location. They do that as a matter of procedure, right? But it is sort of interesting. He did say one thing, which was his name, which was stated clearly and firmly. And again, I want to say gels with sort of what we saw in that exchange of text messages, because he's talking to his roommate, who clearly appears to have no idea, the roommate, what is going on, or that he is the suspected shooter. And yet he's sort of talking a TikTok of what he has done and why he's done it, and admitting to do it, essentially shocking this roommate through these series of exchanges, which sort of gels with his physical appearance today. Obviously, we also heard during the hearing the Utah County following the course of action to introduce the death penalty as well. That was filed as this was being read in court. So definitely some developments here today. And just the amount of information that we got, the blanks that were filled in.
That's right.
Not only that, but also on the apprehension, the involvement of the mother as well, and sort of bringing him in. And also the physical evidence, the DNA found on the actual trigger of the rifle, which was tied to not only what was found on the screwdriver, but also the towel used to wrap the rifle. So an extraordinary amount of information that we got, especially with this charging document that's now in.
What's also clear from these text exchanges laid out, Steve, is that Robinson had no intention of being caught. And I say that because he said he had hoped to die of old age with this being his secret, according to what the state had laid out in this text exchange. Almost seemed panicked when describing trying to go back to return to retrieve the rifle that he allegedly shot Charlie Kirk with, not being able to do so when essentially caught out by his parents, when his parents approached him and said, we think this may have been you, tried to get in touch with him, tried to reach out. The state says that Robinson suggested or implied that he may try to take his own life here. So you can get a sense of his mindset, at least based on some of these text exchanges and what law enforcement has laid out over the course of some of these documents here. All of it, as we should note, these are the state charges here. It's possible federal charges could come.
Yeah, federal charges possible. One notable sort of omission is we didn't see any federal officials. We don't know if federal charges will be filed, although it's heavily implied that they will. One thing also is sort of the level of deceit, both with the parents. The father did something that sounded very clever. It was heard the description of the rifle that had been described by authorities, federal authorities, state authorities, and that he assumed, obviously with the pictures of Robinson himself on camera at the university, assuming this is his son, tried to get in contact with his son, trying to ask, hey, could you send me a picture of the rifle that I gave you? And of course, the son sort of ghosting him, seeming to imply, again, involvement. And also about the rifle, there was a lot of investigative work to try to figure out, was the rifle traceable? Was it bought legally, illegally? Would have been hard to trace, we now know, because this was essentially a family heirloom, something that's common in hunting families, passed down from grandfather to father to son, and that was the case here. So again, much more stark relief that we're seeing this case in, Hallie.
That's right. Robinson also telling his mother he had been out sick, had stayed home sick over the course of the 2 days that she had inquired about. Steve, I know you're going to stand by for us later on as we get potentially more on this. Danielle, let me go back to you here briefly, because Steve laid out what could come next here. Obviously, the death penalty that the state is seeking. What about this protective order for Erica Kirk? Is that something that is typical in the course of an investigation like this, a prosecution like this?
Sure, yes. As to prospective victims, it's usually not entered against someone's spouse. But it makes sense here because this is not some street crime or a crime of passion. This is someone who was apparently, whether by this defendant or not, targeted. And so it makes sense to say, well, close members of the family may also be targeted as well. So it's not unusual for judges to enter those kinds of protective orders sua sponte on their own or in response to a request from the prosecution.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.